Worry has a voice. It whispers in the quiet moments of your day. It shows up early in the morning before you even get out of bed, and it follows you into the night when everything becomes still. It tries to predict your future based on your fears instead of on God's promises. It suggests that what went wrong yesterday will surely go wrong again tomorrow. It magnifies small issues until they appear overwhelming. But believing has a voice too, and that voice speaks from a deeper place. It rises from your spirit and reminds you that you are not alone, not helpless, and not without divine help. You cannot entertain worry and walk in faith at the same time. One will always dominate the other. If you continually rehearse negative outcomes in your mind, your heart will begin to accept them as truth. But if you choose to rehearse the promises of God instead, your inner man will grow strong and steady. Worry feeds on imagination. It paints pictures of failure, loss, sickness, and defeat. Belief also uses imagination, but it sees restoration, provision, healing, and victory. The direction of your life often follows the pictures you hold in your heart. Worry is misplaced meditation. It is focusing your attention on the problem until it feels larger than your ability to handle it. It is turning over the same fearful thought again and again, as if repetition will somehow produce control. But control never comes from worry. Control comes from surrendering your concerns to God and trusting Him with the outcome. When you believe, you release the pressure of having to figure everything out. You acknowledge that there is a greater wisdom at work than your own understanding. Your thoughts are powerful. They shape your emotions, and your emotions influence your decisions. When worry dominates your thinking, your emotions will reflect anxiety, tension, and instability. You may find yourself reacting instead of responding. You may speak words that align with fear instead of faith. But when you begin to believe, your thoughts shift. You start to think in terms of possibility rather than limitation. You begin to expect good instead of bracing for disaster. Believing is not pretending that challenges do not exist. It is recognizing that challenges are temporary and that God's faithfulness is permanent. It is standing in the middle of uncertainty and declaring that you trust Him anyway. It is refusing to let circumstances dictate your confidence. Faith does not wait for perfect conditions. It operates in the midst of imperfect situations and holds steady because it is anchored in something unchanging. Many people allow worry to become a habit. They wake up worried, go through the day worried, and fall asleep worried. They speak about their problems constantly, describing every detail, reinforcing the difficulty with every conversation. Without realizing it, they are strengthening the very thing they want removed. Words matter. When you continually speak what you fear, you empower fear in your life. But when you speak what you believe, you strengthen faith. There is a difference between being informed and being consumed. You can acknowledge a situation without surrendering your peace to it. You can take practical steps while still maintaining trust. Believing does not mean passivity. It means action rooted in confidence rather than in panic. It means making decisions guided by faith instead of driven by fear. The moment a worried thought enters your mind, you have a choice. You can allow it to settle and multiply, or you can challenge it with truth. You can say, "That is not the final word." You can remind yourself of past victories, of prayers answered, of doors opened when there seemed to be no way. Every time you replace a worried thought with a faith-filled declaration, you are strengthening your spiritual foundation. Stop allowing your imagination to work against you. Stop rehearsing failure before it happens. Begin to see yourself overcoming. Begin to see solutions forming. Begin to see doors opening. Faith grows when you feed it with the Word, when you speak it out loud, when you meditate on it consistently. The more you practice believing, the less room worry will have to operate in your mind and heart. Your mind may say, "What if it doesn't work?" That question has stopped more dreams than failure ever could. It plants doubt before you even take a step forward. It suggests that disappointment is inevitable and that effort is pointless. But faith answers with a different question. What if it does work? Faith shifts the focus from fear of loss to expectation of breakthrough. It refuses to let uncertainty dictate direction. It challenges the assumption that negative outcomes are more likely than positive ones. The battlefield of worry is in the mind. Thoughts come quickly, often without invitation. A single report, a single phone call, a single unexpected bill can trigger a chain reaction of anxious reasoning. The mind begins to calculate worst-case scenarios. It runs ahead of the present moment and imagines a future filled with obstacles. But believing requires you to slow that process down and take authority over your thoughts. Not every thought deserves your agreement. Not every idea deserves your attention. You have the ability to choose which thoughts you will dwell on and which you will reject. When your mind says, "This looks impossible," faith responds, "Nothing is impossible with God." That response is not blind optimism. It is confidence rooted in the character of a faithful God. Circumstances may present limitations, but faith looks beyond visible limitations to invisible resources. It understands that what you see is not the whole story. There are things happening behind the scenes that your natural eyes cannot perceive. Worry magnifies the mountain. It measures the height, the width, the difficulty, and then concludes that climbing is unrealistic. It studies the problem so closely that it loses sight of the promise. But faith magnifies God. It considers His power, His faithfulness, His history of delivering His people. It understands that mountains are moved not by anxiety, but by trust-filled words and steady belief. When you magnify the problem, your strength decreases. When you magnify God, your courage increases. There is a tendency to believe that worrying is responsible, that it shows you care. But true responsibility is not anxiety, it is action guided by wisdom and peace. Worry drains energy that could be used for productive steps. It consumes mental space that could be filled with creative solutions. Believing does not make you careless. It makes you clear-minded. It positions you to hear direction and to recognize opportunities that fear would have blinded you to. Your internal dialogue shapes your reality. If you continually say, "I don't think I can handle this," your confidence will shrink. If you repeatedly say, "This is too much for me," you will begin to feel overwhelmed even before taking action. But when you say, "I am strengthened, I am guided, I am supported," your spirit rises to meet the challenge. Faith-filled words build inner resilience. They create a framework of expectation that aligns with victory instead of defeat. Believing also requires patience. Worry demands immediate answers. It insists on knowing how and when everything will happen. Faith, however, is comfortable with process. It trusts that progress is being made even when results are not yet visible. It rests in the assurance that delay is not denial. This kind of trust quiets the restless need to control every detail. You must guard what you allow into your mind. Constant exposure to negative conversations, fearful predictions, and discouraging opinions can feed worry. Surround yourself with truth. Fill your heart with promises. Speak life over your situation daily. The more you immerse yourself in faith-building input, the less space anxiety will have to grow. Every time you choose belief over worry, you strengthen a spiritual muscle. At first, it may feel intentional and deliberate. You may have to consciously redirect your thoughts many times a day. But with practice, faith becomes your natural response. Instead of automatically assuming the worst, you begin to expect the best. Instead of bracing for impact, you stand with confidence. Instead of asking, "What if it fails?" you declare, "I trust God to bring this through." The truth is this: worry has never solved a single problem. It has never healed a body, restored a broken relationship, or opened a closed door. It has never added strength to your spirit or clarity to your thinking. Worry promises control, but it delivers exhaustion. It convinces you that if you think about the problem long enough, you will somehow prevent it. In reality, it only deepens the sense of helplessness. Believing, on the other hand, connects you to power beyond your own ability. It lifts your eyes from what you cannot do to what God can do. When you start believing, something shifts inside you. The tension that once filled your thoughts begins to loosen. You no longer feel the need to carry every burden alone. Faith allows you to release what you cannot control and focus on what you can. It brings a quiet confidence that steadies your emotions. You may still face challenges, but you face them with a different posture. Instead of shrinking back, you stand firm. Instead of reacting in panic, you respond with purpose. Worry drains your physical and emotional energy. It keeps your body tense and your mind restless. It interferes with sleep and clouds your judgment. Many times, people are tired not because of the work they have done, but because of the worrying they have entertained. Their thoughts have been running in circles, replaying the same concerns again and again. Believing brings rest. It allows your mind to settle. It creates space for peace to take root. Believing also changes the way you speak. When worry dominates, your words reflect doubt. You might say, "I don't see how this will work," or "This always happens to me," or "I'm afraid things will get worse." Those words reinforce fear. They shape your expectations and influence those around you. But when you choose to believe, your words begin to align with hope and trust. You say, "This situation is turning around. I am guided and supported. There is a solution I may not see yet." Your speech becomes a tool that builds rather than tears down. There is power in agreement. Whatever you continually agree with in your thoughts and words gains influence in your life. If you agree with worry, you empower it. If you agree with faith, you strengthen it. The moment a negative thought appears, you can challenge it. You can refuse to let it settle in your heart. You can replace it with truth. This is not denial, it is discipline. It is training your mind to follow your faith instead of your fear. Believing requires consistency. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily choice. Every morning you decide what will shape your outlook. Every conversation is an opportunity to speak life or to rehearse problems. Every report you receive can either fuel anxiety or deepen trust. Faith grows as you practice it. The more you respond in belief, the more natural it becomes. You do not have to wait for perfect conditions to believe. You do not have to see immediate results to trust that progress is happening. Often, the greatest growth occurs beneath the surface, where you cannot measure it. Just as a seed develops roots before it breaks through the soil, faith works in unseen ways before visible change appears. Worry demands visible proof before it relaxes. Belief rests in assurance even before proof arrives. When you begin to live this way, you discover that peace is not dependent on circumstances. It flows from confidence in God's faithfulness. Even when external situations remain uncertain, there is stability within. Your heart becomes anchored. Your perspective becomes clearer. You move forward not because every question has been answered, but because you trust the one who holds the answers, and you choose to align your thoughts, your words, and your expectations with that trust. Stop rehearsing the worst-case scenario in your mind. Every time you imagine failure before it happens, you are strengthening fear's influence over your emotions. Your imagination was never meant to be a tool for anxiety. It was given to you to envision possibility, to see beyond the present limitation, to picture promises fulfilled. When you continually place scenes of defeat, loss, or disappointment in your thoughts, your body reacts as if those things are already happening. Your heart rate increases, your peace diminishes, your confidence weakens. But when you begin to imagine victory, restoration, and breakthrough, your inner world shifts in a different direction. Start expecting the best instead of bracing for the worst. Expectation is powerful. What you expect often shapes how you respond. If you expect failure, you approach opportunities with hesitation. If you expect rejection, you speak with uncertainty. If you expect lack, you make decisions from a place of fear. But when you expect God to move, to provide, to guide, You carry yourself differently. There is a steadiness in your voice. There is strength in your posture. There is clarity in your thinking. Stop worrying about tomorrow as if you must carry it today. Tomorrow has not arrived, yet many people exhaust themselves trying to solve problems that have not even developed. Worry pulls you into a future that does not yet exist and robs you of peace in the present moment. Faith keeps you anchored in today while trusting God with what lies ahead. It allows you to handle what is in front of you without being overwhelmed by what might come next. Trust grows when you practice it. It is not built in a single moment. It is formed through repeated decisions to rely on God instead of on fear. Each time you choose to speak faith when anxiety rises, you are reinforcing trust. Each time you refuse to dwell on a negative report, you are strengthening your confidence. Over time, what once required effort becomes your natural response. Faith becomes your first reaction rather than your last resort. Let your words line up with what you believe rather than with what you fear. Words are containers of power. They carry your expectations into the atmosphere of your life. When you continually say, "I don't know how this will work out," you are giving voice to uncertainty. When you declare, "God is working this out for my good," you are aligning yourself with hope. The shift may seem small at first, but consistency in speech creates momentum in your spirit. Guard your heart carefully. What you allow to settle there will influence your outlook. If you constantly feed on negative information, fearful conversations, and discouraging predictions, worry will feel natural. But if you fill your heart with promises, testimonies of victory, and reminders of God's faithfulness, belief will rise more easily. What you meditate on grows stronger. Choose intentionally what you allow to take root in your thinking. Peace is not the absence of challenges. It is the presence of trust in the middle of them. You can have unanswered questions and still remain calm. You can face uncertainty and still be confident. Faith does not eliminate every storm immediately, but it steadies you while you walk through it. It reminds you that you are supported, guided, and never abandoned. Make the shift daily. Close the door on anxious rehearsals. Refuse to let fear dominate your imagination. Open your heart to belief and allow it to expand your perspective. See yourself overcoming obstacles. See doors opening that once seemed locked. See provision flowing where there once appeared to be lack. See restoration where there was brokenness. As you continually align your thoughts, your words, and your expectations with trust, worry begins to lose its grip and faith rises to take its rightful place in your life.